Hi guys, to all those that we have loved and lost. The idea of this concept I'd like to express came through to me through personal observation. When we lose a loved one, it seems that the amount that they are part of our lives is the amount that we miss that person. It's very generic, this, so it may not apply to everybody. I liken it to like pizza toppings. So imagine my current daily life as pizza toppings. So during a period of my life when I was caring for my elderly father, my pizza topping was made up of almost everything that pertained to him. There were very few experiences in my life that were about what I wanted to do. Almost all of the time my days were taking care of his needs, cooking, cleaning, thinking about his stuff, planning outings, movies he might like to watch. Whereas had I, during this time, been working myself or had other family members around me sharing the experience, then it would not have been so much of my pizza. After my father died, the hardest part for me was putting my life back together. I was trying to find out again who I was, what did I like to do, where were my friends. It took me a great deal of time to recover from my dad's death, not necessarily because of grief, but more to do with I couldn't remember who I was or what I liked to do, because for so long my life had been not about me. Even friends that I've lost over the years, I think about the amount of grief I've experienced was directly related to how big a part of life they were. I came across a concept a number of years ago which stated that if somebody you care about dies, then when informing someone of their death, it should be done so in a manner where you lead them to the idea of it rather than telling them outright. I think this is because it seems that our thinking is built upon bricks rather than random free-floating thoughts. I had a friend who lost her husband maybe 2 years ago, and I met her at the shops recently, and she was talking to me about the conversation where she had been informed of her son's death, and she told me that her son had called her on the phone and said, "Dad is dead." So 2 years later, she's still trying to process that statement. It seems to me that she's unable to process her grief until such time that she can get over the shock. So to prevent the shock being so blatant, maybe a better way of her son approaching this would have been to start with, "I've got some terrible news for you. It's about Dad. Something horrible's happened. I really don't know how to tell you this." Therefore, allowing the other person to build a place in their own consciousness in which to house this information. Keep on leading questions without telling that person outright. Like, "I called an ambulance straight away." The other person might ask questions like, "Is he okay?" And the answer would be no. And perhaps again, repeating, "I really don't know how to tell you this," until they ask the question, "Is he dead?" It makes sense to deliver a message in this way rather than blurting it out. There's no criticism on the part of my friend's son in this. I'm only talking about this so others could perhaps be more considerate when telling other people alarming news. But there is an extension to this thinking which doesn't really relate to death. But I now apply this principle when talking to people about any subject. I find it a great deal better to communicate with others when it is their thought building on the foundation before embarking on the subject, to give people a point of reference, especially in today's world where things are so very confusing and bizarrely disparate. I find myself these days listening to people regularly espousing opinions as fact, things they've heard on the media or been told by someone, but upon questioning them, they rarely have any basis for their argument, other than hearing it and believing it from a channel. Comments like, "The experts say," is so regularly accepted by our community. But really, should it be so? Should it not be our own responsibility to check information given, make it so we could make our own minds up about it? Or does that give us the label of conspiracy theorists simply because we like to do our own investigation and make up our own minds? I know in this current world it's almost impossible to debate anything with anyone. People seem to have firmly made up their minds about whatever it is that they believe in. I mean, even answering the phone these days to an unrecognised number is approached with great caution. But without us recognizing this, might we be missing out on something that could actually benefit us? So to bring it back to dying for a minute, as I seem to have wandered off, I went to a funeral of a friend that died. She was a nurse, a caring soul. And at the funeral, as people stood up, they talked about her. But I became acutely aware that every one of these individuals was actually talking about themselves, not actually talking about the nature or her character. It was more statements like, I will miss her popping round to check that I'm okay as I've been unwell lately. Or things like, she was a great cook, she brought meals around for me when I was unable to prepare them for myself. Made me think about how selfish we all are when it comes to death. How we have a tendency to make it about ourselves and how we cope with it, rather than actually giving thanks and greatness to the individuals and acknowledging them, making it about them. It seems unfair, but I can remember walking out of the funeral thinking how her friends really did not get the essence of who she was. Perhaps we don't even need somebody to die in order for this acknowledgement to take place on another, but instead look towards who people are rather than what they can do for you. Thanks.